The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, and thank you for your patience, and welcome to this week's webinar. We're going to be discussing search engine optimization. And before we get started, I just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. If you can just say hi or yes or no in the chat window, that'd be awesome. And that way we can go ahead and continue on. I know sometimes there's little audio glitches, and I'd hate to go halfway into the presentation and then have you folks not here. So if you can hear me, just say hi or type some gibberish into the chat window, and then that way we can continue on. There's one hi at least, so a couple of us are here. For those who don't know, my name's Jose Galvin. I do the technical support here, have been with eVetSites for a couple of years, and have a background in tech and not so much veterinary medicine, but love animals, have 3 cats, and have learned quite a bit from working with doctors and practice managers and vet techs over the years. So I thank you all for taking the time out to join us this morning. We're going to cover some really general information today. And oh, the chat window is not working. Well, let's see. I wonder if it's in here. Yeah, there's some question about the chat. So there's a question section, and then there's the chat section. I wonder if the chat is kind of a different one. And somebody can see but can't type anything. Weird. Okay, well, I will work on that. No, the chat window, I think that the question and the chat window are 2 different things. They're right next to each other. So I'm seeing everything that you guys are sending me. So if like I said, if you have a question, just drop it in there. I will see them, and we'll be glad to answer any questions. Okay, so what we're going to cover today is some real basic, just kind of overarching things to do with SEO. If anyone wants to be a guinea pig, I'll be glad to work on your site, and I encourage everyone to do a follow-up so we can discuss your situation, your practice individually. SEO, as you may know, stands for search engine optimization. It's a real general term for everything that goes into how your site ranks on an internet search engine. So, for example, if we were to do a search for veterinarian in Midtown Sacramento, your search results are going to be 3 parts. You're going to have some advertisements that appear up here. These are paid ads that companies and individuals shell out money for in order to appear either up here at the top of the results, somewhere in the map, or sometimes over on the side. Then you're going to see these map results. These are, I'll get into how these are ranked in a second. And then these are the organic results. And this is the main, these are the results that SEO is focused on. They're non-paid results. So none of these people paid to get this rank. Obviously, they've paid for the internet hosting, tech support, and all that sort of thing, but they're not paying to get to the bottom or to the top or anything like that. Now, the map results are interesting. You'll see the map, and you'll see a couple of things here. Map results have a lot to do with you just claiming your site on the map. It also has, the ranking has a lot to do with your physical location. So if I click on this map, Sacramento is the state capital here. I live across the river. And if you notice, they're looking at kind of this general metro area, and then they're basing their results accordingly. This doctor down here is not really near Midtown, but you know, she's part of this big picture, and so she's way down over here somewhere. There we go. So about 7 or 8 results down. On the other hand, Midtown, which is our my veterinarian, and she's also a VIN member and also an eVetSites member, she's showing up first because of her physical proximity. So if you do a search for that, don't be dismayed if you don't show up number 1. So for example, these guys right here, Del Paso Vet Clinic, they're not showing up as number 1, but they may be number 1 for the Del Paso area, right? So you have to look at it in terms of how it is relative to you and your communities. Maybe if somebody lives in Carmichael, right, they're not going to rank as high for this. But maybe if we do now, look how things change. Now Google is looking at the areas close to that town, and there's nothing showing up downtown because it's a little bit out of the way. There's some bridges, and it's a little bit of a haul. You've got to get downtown, and it's always kind of a hassle. So these doctors are closer. So don't be dismayed if when you're looking at a map, it's not ranking for that particular town. Now, that's not saying that you can't rank for it. I just don't want you to think that that's the be-all, end-all. There are things that you can do to still rank for a town that's a little further out, but what you want to do is be cognizant of that area. So for example, if I go back to the search for veterinarian in Midtown Sacramento, so here is Midtown Animal Hospital. And on their site, they have some content talking about the areas that they serve. This is probably the biggest factor in SEO. It's just the actual content on your site. If you want to rank for something, it has to be on the website. It will not rank if you don't have it. You can't kind of infer or allude. You got to be direct. If you have recipes for cakes, you've got to have the recipes listed. Maybe pictures of cakes, maybe a video of the cake or a GIF of the cake being eaten. All that content is going to help you with that. And in a similar manner, if you service communities near the town that you're in, then you want to go ahead and also talk about that. So for example, our neighbors in Midtown and downtown Sacramento, clients coming from West Sac, Davis, Carmichael, Fair Oaks, and Elk Grove. Some of these are a little further out. And I remember we had this conversation because, she's, again, like I said, she's our client and my doctor and all. And she said, that's fine. We'll just throw some out there. There may be some communities, and this is something that we can discuss when we have a one-on-one. Maybe there's a community that maybe it's not the best community, or maybe it's not really a community where there's people actually living there. So, for example, Midtown, from here to over here, I used to live down here, so I can tell you this. This is all residences and businesses and stuff, and then right over here, it's a lot of businesses. There's some apartments and stuff, but in general. And then if you get into this part right here, the Southern Pacific Rail Yards, these are all state buildings, factories, places where they fix boats, things like that. And every town has this. It's not necessarily, it's not a judgment on that particular part of town. It's just, it is what it is, right? There's always going to be that kind of warehouse district, that business district. And so maybe you don't even want to say, well, we service Southern Pacific Rail Yards, or, we service the industrial park. There's no point. There's not going to be anybody there. It's not going to benefit you. So when you're, for those that are taking notes, the first thing I would note that's really important is to make sure, preferably on your homepage, and you can put it in other places as well, make sure that you actually talk about what you do and where you do it. And so those are like the two main things. Most veterinary websites are just an informative. I don't want to say it's a placeholder, but it's a repository of information about your practice. And then from then, the big payoff is that they'll pick up the phone, they'll call, and then they'll begin that relationship with you. Hey, do you have a spot available next Tuesday? I'd like to bring my animal in to get some shots. Bless you. And so when you're looking at your website, see if, look at it from the eyes of a stranger. Say, do I reflect the fact that we're servicing the communities that we have clients from, or that you'd like to get clients from? Maybe there's a new business or a new residential area that just appeared. Maybe there's some new housing development. Include that. We have happy clients from X, Y, and Z. We've been in business for X amount of years, and we also are proudly part of the communities of A, B, and C, where A, B, and C are the communities that are near you. And this is one great place to put it, your homepage, because this lets people know right off the bat. But it's not the only place that you can put it. Most pages have a contact us page, and if you don't have one, I can help you set one up. It's kind of just a generic launch point, and as you can see, we're kind of reinforcing this here. Midtown and downtown, West Sac, Davis, Carmichael, Fair Oaks, Elk Grove. There's other communities, obviously. If she wanted to focus on, for example, oh gosh, what's downtown here? I haven't lived on that side of the river in a while. So Oak Park, Land Park, Curtis Park. These are all nice places to live. East Sacramento. If she wanted to go ahead and address these right here, they're well within, a 5-10 minute drive. Everything's fairly easy to. So look at the map. Think about which areas you want to target, and if, like I said, if you're taking notes, just jot down that locations are important as well as services. I talk to, like I mentioned before, I've got cats. In the past I've had dogs, but I don't have one now because we've got kids, and it's a lot of work. But work that I don't want to do because they say that they want the dog, but I know they're not going to walk it. So if you do a certain procedure, if the practice has certain equipment, X-rays or rehabilitation or whatever it may be, talk about those things here. If your practice is a clinic versus a full-on hospital, or if it's an emergency clinic versus a boarding facility, talk about those things. Okay, give me 1 second. So we have someone that says she lost audio. Test. Anyone else still have it or no? Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so we're getting something about the audio. I'll slow it down a bit. Sometimes I get excited, and I think if I speed up the talking, that'll things to get a little goofy. Okay, so and every practice is unique. I'm not just saying this to butter you guys up, but every practice is unique. Every practice has a unique location, history, staff, your connections to the community. All of these things are things that you can change. And the reason I harp on this is it's the really most important part of SEO. There's going to be some other technical things that we can get into, but the actual content on your site, having original content and having it reflect the humanity and the people there are what's going to make you really stick out ahead of the crowd. It's not a disrespect to the folks in Banfields or any of the other chain quote unquote hospitals. But those places don't have that same type of history or relationship. My daughter adopted a cat a little while ago. I tell the story. we got it from the shelter, and they had us go to the VCA. We went to the VCA. They did the shots and everything for her kitten, and then when we went back for the checkup, there's a whole new staff. I'm not even kidding. It's like a whole new front desk people, whole new doctors, vet techs, the works. It was like a whole. It's like they had just replaced everybody with a whole new group. And so if you've got a practice where you've been there and there's some consistency, even if you lose, a couple of team members, there's still that core, and you should use that to your advantage. You talk about how long you've been in the community, things like that. If you have some involvement in the community, any sort of charity work, maybe you sponsor a little league, talk about that. If one of the doctors or the staff does 5K charity runs, talk about those sorts of things. Those are the things that will really help. It not only is it just a good thing for SEO because you're going to see those terms, but it will help with other things as well. Oh, great! So we've got a willing participant here. So thank you, Dr. Beaumont. I'm going to go ahead and pull up one of these. Let me just move this over. All right, so we're going to look at Mount Holly Animal Clinic. And so Dr. Bowman has kindly volunteered to be a kind of a test for the purposes of this call. And so if we notice here, we've got the staff Peoria Heights. I've talked to her before, and I think I've talked to someone on the staff, and I can never pronounce this right, so I'm just going to not even try. But this is great because we're seeing how it's showing up. Now let's go to the contact us and see if it's there. Yep. And so this is another great example of how we can show it up. So Peoria, this is Peoria, Illinois. There's Spring Bay. Let's go ahead and do a search. So let's say Spring Bay is really important to Dr. Beaumont. I don't know if it is. If she says no, that's not really the one. But let's just pretend for the purposes of this that Spring Bay, Illinois is hugely important. So this is one of the searches that people will do, and there's plenty of searches out there. Every time we talk about these sorts of things. Everybody has different searches. It's kind of like driving somewhere. You go somewhere and you switch the wheels. Somebody else takes it, and you go to a restaurant. You're like, well, what are you doing? You're going the wrong way. Well, try sitting with someone and do a search, and you'll see how things get changed up. Sometimes people will put in vet or animal clinic or whatever. There's a lot of different searches out there, so don't get hung up on just doing it just the one. You're kind of aiming for a general thing. So here for Spring Bay, Illinois, let's do veterinarian. I realize sometimes lay people get goofed up with that one. Okay, so here we are. Hey, look at this. They're number one for this. I'm liking that. And they're on the first page for this one. As you can see, the highlighted term is in the search. There's other people that are showing up. It's kind of hard to compete against Yelp and Yellow Pages, but these guys right here we might be able to, or these guys, but we're in the running. The content is there, and it's done its job. I'm going to take a step back just to give a real general recap for those that don't know about how SEO works. The process goes like this. You build a website. You have content on it, hopefully original content. Google comes by. It kind of crawls the site, takes note of all the words, content on the website. It'll follow links, and it'll continue to do that through these here. And so then what's going to happen is after it has this record of these things. The term is called indexing, kind of cataloging or whatever. Then what's going to happen is it'll return results based on that content. So in this case, it ran the result and it saw that Spring Bay, Illinois is there. Now, if you're not showing up that high for a certain search term, let me see, what's another one that's on here for Holly? Spring Bay. How about this one? Chili coffee. Chillicothe? All right, so look at these guys. They've got the name right in their site, on their title. Mount Holly is here again, though. Now on the first page, which is fantastic. This is not a setup. They didn't pay me to do this. This is great to hear. But so something you can do if you weren't ranking that well, and this is where I will say, if you're taking notes, this is a really cool thing. If you go into Google, and this will work in Bing and Yahoo as well, if you type in site and then your domain name, and then whatever the search term is. So for example, in this case, I'm going to do Chillicothe or Chillicothe, whatever. It'll show you all the pages that have that term. And look, it's on a couple of pages here. The contact us, looks like some sort of site search, and the home page. And they're ranking for the first page. If they wanted to go higher, they would just add that to a couple more pages. This is a really cool trick too if you're ever searching like see, and it's got all this cool stuff. So every particular page at this domain for this. They'll even do autocorrect for you. So this is a great tool for self-examination. If you're looking at your website, you want to see how well you're doing for any term. And Google will include variants. So veterinary, veterinarians, veterinary, veterinarian is a singular and plural. All of those things, come into they all count. So your content is a big factor of this. I know, and I spend a lot of time on this because it's important, and because a lot of times when I talk to clients, I look at their websites and they've got stock information on there, and it's so easily changed, and if you need help with coming up with some verbiage, let me know. That we can do that for you, but we need to have that conversation because you know your communities, your practice infinitely better than I do, just kind of looking at it through a screen. Hopefully that makes sense. If everyone has that, I'll move on to the next part where we talk a little bit more about some first steps on how to expand on that. Some of you may have noticed that this when I put my mouse over, I get some text that appears. Okay, so like I mentioned before, Google indexes your page, follows links. It'll look at the content. Part of the content are the images, and if you've got an image with a descriptive tag on it, that helps both the reader or the visitor to the site because they have some more information about the image is about. It'll also help Google because then it has more of an idea of what something's about as well. So here is, this is kind of an intro page, Mount Holly Animal Clinic, veterinarian serving, and then it's got the list of these different communities. If you were, for example, on a page for a doctor, you would do the same here. So here's Dr. Dawson, and here's Dr. Tasnik. Now, notice this. There's not a tag on here. So this is a great place to go ahead and put one in. To do so, you click on Edit Content. And if you ever want to add a tag, you just double-click the image. this image description field is where you're going to type in a short sentence, a little blurb about, about the person, place, or thing that we're talking about here. So what I'm going to do, I think it's important to make kind of like a little sentence. And this will work. This tells people some information, again, who you are, where you are, and what this particular image is about. So here's the doctor. So it shows up. And this is good because you never know. People follow doctors. I know that sometimes people stick with practices, but a lot of times they follow doctors. And if she was working somewhere else, and maybe they were looking for her, hey, where Dr. Tasnik went? She was so nice, and then she took off after that one practice, closed down. They'll do a search for her. This is an easier way to grab a hold of them. They'll be able to, a visitor online will be able to find this. Some tips here are do not shove it full of keywords. Resist the urge to put something in like this. It's not going to help because if you do something like this, then this is what the person sees, and that doesn't really communicate. I know that this is a webinar, so it's a little one-sided. It's not like if we were doing a one-on-one consult, but I'm using sentences and not just little snippets of words. And so you got to think that as well. Pretend that somebody's going to read it. Does it make a little bit of sense, or is it just a mishmash of words? Google themselves are not big fans of just putting a big string of keywords in. A short descriptive little snippet of a sentence like this: Mount Holly Animal Clinic in Peoria, Illinois. Our doctor, our vet tech. Here's Jose, our custodian. Whatever the case may be. And or maybe here's some laser therapy equipment, all that sort of stuff. I'll put this link here in the box, and it's got a how-to on how to do this. This is a real simple, very simple tip that you can do. Even if you do a couple a day, it's going to help. So, and here's some examples. So for a staff member, you can have veterinary clinic, Anytown, California. Here's our practice manager, Joe. Or for, a piece of equipment, veterinary clinic, Anytown, California. We offer laser surgery. Sometimes people look for those particular things. And this is there's not a lot of technical, involvement in this. You want to make sure that just all the images have something on there. All right, so everyone's following me on this so far. We're about the halfway point, so I'm gonna switch to kind of a bigger picture thing. So in addition to the images, there's other things that we can do, including titles, slugs, and descriptions. I'll include those here, but I'm not going to really delve into them too much right now because I want to talk about another aspect to SEO and kind of expand on something that I talked about earlier. So all the stuff that we're doing here with changing the content, putting these tags on the images, this is all called on-site SEO. It's things that you're doing to your website. But there's actually more to it than that. Outside of the things that you do to your website, there's a thing called off-site SEO. And this has to do with a little bit of the marketing side of things. It has to do with how other pages or other entities out there interact with your site. So what I've done is I've gone to this site called Moz. I'll include this here on the links as well. And what this is, it's an aggregate. It's kind of a collection of different listings, and just like they say here, they got the little cartoon. You put in your data, they go to these different data aggregators, and then they can find your information. So I'm going to go ahead and check it now. In plain English, it's just going to give you a general score about how well the site is known online. In other words, is it listed with Google or Facebook? Is there a listing created for Foursquare? Is there these other different directories? Is there consistent information, or are there inconsistencies? Maybe we've got a listing at Yelp, but maybe there's no listing for the website. This is where you can kind of get a really general idea of these things. Moz it's not my first choice for doing this, but it is my first choice because it's easy. I'll expand on that in a second. It's a simple to use, easy to use interface that gives you just a real general idea of how well you're doing. Is anyone on this call working for a practice that's a new practice? If so, let me know, because we've got some work to do on that right off the bat, and so this is why I wanted to bring this in and talk about this. Okay, we are. Let's talk. Well, let's set up a setup. And do you have a domain name already? If you don't mind, would you mind sharing it with us so I can check the listing on here? So if these folks are an established practice, they're at about 70%, and so they've got some listings. Thank you, and that's Jennifer. That's offering. Thank you, Jennifer. We'll get to that in just a second. So see how they have all these listings here, and there's some that are missing. So and there's some, for the most part, these are fairly consistent, right? 836 West Pioneer Parkway. It's got the address. It's got the link to the website. Here, there's a little bit of inconsistency because it's going to the local vets. There's also this bit of madness where there's a doctor's name. Now, this doctor here, I don't recall being in the listing. So here's an opportunity okay. So if this doctor does not work there, then here is where you would go to Super Pages to update this listing. And this is good information to have. So here I'll send this to you, Mavis. Let me send this. And so if somebody were to log in to update this listing, what they would do is, claim this business, because there's a phone number there, I think, and there's an address. So you would claim this business, and then there's a process where you have to get a username and a password. Sometimes there's a verification. And then what you do is you start cleaning up. You say, okay, well, this doctor is no longer with us, and you remove it. Or maybe there's a listing that doesn't have all your information, like this one right here. This one just says Holly Animal Clinic and not Mount Holly. So this is, like I said, this is a great spot to begin. We can do this on the phone, and it's a lot easier because then we can go over the specifics of each one. And there's other things you could fix too, like see right here. Here's some inconsistencies. No website, different phone number, right? I don't know what's happening here. And then there's some duplicates, or there's some different things that are. Here's Dr. Dawson, and there's a little bit of confusion going around. So this is a great place to get started. There's another list. Oh, that's right. I have another listing. I'll get to that in a sec. Let's go back over here to Paws and Claws, Georgia. And since these folks are brand new, oh, I like this website. All right, so this is a new practice. We've got to go ahead and see what kind of an impact they have now. It's really important because these wheels move slowly. So even if we have something, if a site has been sent to listings, that updating process takes a bit. All right, so this isn't bad. 53% for brand new practice. This is really good. So if you go here, you can see that there's all these different listings. Here's one, YP, without a domain name or without a website listing. So here, if we were on the call, I would walk them through and try to get all of these, so you get as many listings as we can. And then what happens is that they start to work off of each other. There's this kind of a snowball effect, right? So you get the good information out there, and then they start feeding into one another. But you really have to. The first thing is this part right here: getting onto Google, the different search engines and directories, and this is a place where you can go ahead and do that. So, for example, on Super Pages here or YP, you would again click this Update Listing, and then 10 years later, you can go ahead and do this. This is your business. Customize this page. Here's the Claim This Business. So here is, and again, it says Paws and Claws, but it's not even correctly. So let's see here. And for Jennifer, I just sent you the link to this page, but let's talk too, because there's more to it than this one. And so as you can see, here's other work that we can do. These folks right here at Moz, they are search engine clearinghouse of information. They sell stuff. They give some information away for free. They do webinars for people like myself and for other people. They sell products as well, and obviously they want you to sign up, in order to get 91%. But you don't have to subscribe or pay them a cent. You can do these different things to improve your listing for free. You just need to invest a little bit of time in order to do it. So, for example, on a page like Best of the Web, you'd have to hit the Create Listing button. And probably the most difficult part about this is just keeping track of all the different usernames and passwords, because it becomes kind of a pain in the butt, right? Payment plan, what the heck? No thanks. I didn't know these guys started charging. You shouldn't have to pay for any of this either. A Foursquare account. People, even though people don't really use Foursquare that much, it's still used in a lot of location services. So, for example, people that use Twitter, Instagram, Swarm app, I think even like Snapchat and things like that have location-based features, they rely on the Foursquare engine in order to go ahead and, quote unquote, check into places. So it's still good to have a presence on there, even if you may not be using it yourself. And here's a kind of a side note. I know I haven't really delved into this too much, but I get a lot of feedback about Yelp. A lot of folks are not happy with them. I know that there's some controversy with them asking people to pay for better listings and things like that. My response is to, at the very least, claim your business on there, just so that you know that you have control over it, even if nobody else does, right? So in this case, three one five four eight. So there's no so there's no listing here for Paws and Claws Veterinary Clinic. And maybe there's somebody out there, and maybe I'm showing my optimism here. Maybe there's somebody out there that had a really great time there. They were treated kindly. Their issue with their animal was resolved in a way that made them happy, and maybe they want to go ahead and leave a good review. If they don't have it here, it's as far as Yelp is concerned, the practice doesn't even exist. I strongly recommend, and even if you don't like Facebook or Yelp or whatever other type of directory or search engine or social media there is, at least just show up just to have it there. You know what I mean? At least claim the business so that you can go ahead and in the future, if you have to, you can interact with folks. It doesn't always end that way. That there's not always a happy ending. There's always going to be those people that complain and leave bad reviews no matter what. Don't let that deter you. You still want to be able to show up for folks that are traveling, for people that are looking for a new doctor, for somebody that's just picking up their app and doing that. When I don't do as much traveling for eVetSites as I used to now our girl Alex does most of that. But I'll use the Yelp app and I'll look at places when I'm eating and say, okay, well, this place has good reviews. There's 10 good reviews, 1 bad one. Most reasonable people, and I like to consider myself a reasonable person, will look at that and say, okay, that's a good thing overall. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So again, and we can talk about this some more again one-on-one, but I want to stress this. It's okay to at least, at the very bare minimum, just sign up just so you have something there, because right now there's nothing. And same thing for all these other groups, for the Foursquare and YP, things like that. It looks like you've done some of the big ones already, and one is not our client. Well, that's interesting. So see, they have already claimed their Google thing. See, now I want to chat with Jennifer about this stuff. So let's talk about this. Your Google presence or your Google business page is one of the most important ones, if not the first most important one of these social media or search engine type things. So it's kind of everything. The Google business page, and let me go ahead and log into mine. I think I'm in my account, not the eVetSites, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so I do some volunteer work here. And so, as you can see, same type thing. I can add information, put in hours, that sort of thing. And believe it or not, here's the reviews. And here's some people that left some ratings. Believe it or not, people will complain, even though it's all run by volunteers. But the business page is the first spot to go ahead and do this. You can see, you can add images, you can see the reviews and respond to reviews, and all this. Now look at this. This is Paws and Claws in Tracy. This is not the one that we want. Let me go ahead and do this. Now, see, we've got a different thing here. But look at this. Fantastic. All sorts of great reviews here. Look at all these kind people. That's awesome. And when you have that control over it, you can respond to folks. You can thank them. You can add images. Sometimes when you look at the street view, it's not quite as descriptive. So like, see how this one is. Where is it? Oh, here it is. See, so this is the street view is showing the completely other side of the street. So if you show this is going to help out, right? All right, we got a great question. How do you know if you have a business Google page that you can access as you're showing? You can tell normally. Now, this is a little tricky. This is usually tied towards your, oh, cool, all sorts of questions. I love it. So this is tied normally to an email. So here I've got this one right here. I've also got, you can tell by going to google.com/business. Maybe I'll get to yours in just a second. And if you log in, you can search for your name and see if it's there. And this is for Christine. You can also see just by doing a search for the practice, and what you'll do is you'll see something here. If it's not a practice that has something, then it's not going to appear. Let me see here. All right, great. So let me look at this one. Yes. All right. So let's do Miranda Pet Hospital. So it looks like something has been created because there are reviews here, and normally the giveaways you can see that there's additional photos. So somebody has added photos to it. Christine, after the call, if you could please call in, or I'll call you. We can set up a time, and we can figure out which account it's tied to. So that sometimes these things are done, one or two employees before us. Depends on the email. Maybe it's set up for an email that the doctor forgot that he had, or that she had, and that sort of thing. I had a question now that we're in here up from Mavis about flipping the view from the front to back. So in the different images that Google includes, one of them is always going to be the street view. And street view, as you know, is this thing where if you go to any Google map, right here, oh, I'm going to do it for myself. I literally saw these guys right outside our office. So street view is a way of looking at the practice, or looking right at a street, and saying, hey, here's my office right here, by the way, and you can just kind of poke around for a different business. Now, Mavis asked, how can we flip this one? So this is showing the animal clinic here. It may not be the best shot, but this is as it appears while this vehicle is just kind of rolling down the street. All I did is drag it like this for the other practice that we were at earlier, which was, oh, nope, it wasn't those guys. Who was it? Boston Claus. Yeah, these guys right here. And by you taking claim of it, you have way more control, because this picture here is a million times better than this one right here. It's not even showing the right building, right? So if you add these things, it'll help, especially if somebody's driving, right? Because if I'm driving along and I know that I'm looking out for the palm trees in the circle, I'm going to see that. And I'm going to be like, oh, that's where it is, and then get to this. Now I have to ask, did this used to be a church? Old Mayo Clinic. Oh, interesting. Wow. All right, Mavis. Good speaking with you. She had to go ahead and take off. We've got about like 5 minutes left. I'm so excited that everyone's asking questions today. Um, so this Miranda Pet Hospital, which is someone asked about this one. Let me go ahead and pull it up again. Okay. So if you're not sure, we'll go ahead and do this one as well. We'll do it really fast here. We've got time for this. The fun part about this is that there's always stuff that we can do. You know, I have people call. I guess that's kind of a little depressing. There's always room for improvement. How about that? There's always a little bit more that you can do, and there's a lot that we can do as well. But we have to have the conversation. Sometimes I'll get people that ask and say, "Well, you just do it for me, Jose," and I can't, because I can kind of take a stab at it. I can make a guess for what it is that you're trying to rank for. But if you have a certain specific thing, you know, certain communities, a certain search term, a certain procedure that you're trying to advertise, a certain demographic, those are things that you have to share with me and that we have to have a conversation about. All right, so Veranda's doing pretty good. You guys have a 75% score according to Moz. There's some consistencies here. There's a lot of these that have been filled out. There's a couple of these other ones that haven't. Not that big of a deal. You're on the big ones: Facebook, Google, Yelp, Yellow Pages, and Super Pages, and it looks like for the most part these are all listing great. Now this one, whenever you have individuals, there was a point in time, I think, when this was kind of touted as a panacea for giving people good search results, because I see this a lot where people have their individual names listed versus the practice. Now, unless you're a single doctor practice, if you're a house call service, if you're something like that, I would stay away from putting just individual names on there. I would put the name of the practice, because that's really what you want to go ahead and focus on, right? And then if you notice, these all say Miranda Pet, but then we've got these two that have different listings. And I mean, it says Miranda Pet Hospital. It doesn't say Douglas Piper DVM or whatever. So whatever it is that you're going to go ahead and focus on, if we really were going to do, Bonnie Westlake's deal, then Yellow Pages add these as a perk. Well, I wonder if it helps. It seems to me that it dilutes it a little bit, because then you've got the name of the practice on there. And especially, oh wow, look at this. Now we've got 2 domain names. So here, Piper Vets. So here's the doctor's name. I want to share this one if that's okay. Yes, well, suffice to say that there's a lot of people saying a lot of things about SEO. We've got a couple minutes left, so I'm gonna just say this really quickly. If you've ever approached from an SEO company or marketing company, Yellow Pages, directory, and things like that, SEO is kind of a science, but it's not an exact science. In other words, I can tell you, if you do X, Y, and Z, it will improve your search, but it would be foolhardy and it would be inaccurate for me to say that I'll guarantee a certain result, right? Because there's just too many variables. We don't know, for example, if we do a search for, let's do Fort Myers here. So here's these different listings, right? And let's say we wanted to get Veranda to number 1 on this list. Well, I can work on the site. We can have a conversation, and Right. Right. You guys have two domain names. So we can work on improving the site, getting it to page one, but we don't know what Daniel's Animal Hospital is doing, or Fort Myers Vet. This is going to be a tough one because they've got it right in the name. What we can do is we can say, if you do X, Y, and Z, this is going to improve it, and if we do it, it's going to take a couple of weeks, whatever they can, but whatever the case may be. When you have somebody that promises you, we will guarantee you number one, or we're going to guarantee you X amount of clients or whatever, just politely hold on to your wallet and give me a call, because there's really not a way for somebody to absolutely guarantee that, because they have no idea what the competition's doing, right? If they're talking to their version of Jose, or they're talking to something else, or if they have a designer that's making them a new logo and hooking up social media and all this other stuff. So do not buy into all that stuff. There's no magic bullet. It takes a little bit of work, and we've just sort of scratched the surface on some of the things, both for the on-site and the off-site SEO. We're reaching the limit here for time, and so I want to thank all of you that showed up and left great questions. Appreciate everyone engaging. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. Give me a call after. I'll try to follow up with all of you. If you're on social media, urge you all to please follow us, and we will do the same. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/eVetSites. We are also on Instagram, and we are on Twitter. Let's see here. Yes, contact info for follow-up. Here's the number. You can also just shoot me an email. I don't know how much time everyone has on this, but I will try to follow up at least with an email to the team, and then hopefully we can get to work for more and get some more work done, since we just kind of scratched the surface today. All right, if no one has any other questions, thank you all for showing up. Really appreciate all the great questions today. And you have a great day. We'll see you next week with another webinar.